Hey guys, we're back with episode 3. I don't know if this one's actually going to be episode 3 sequentially, but it will be episode 3, like, in the order we recorded them, so, yeah.
Disco Elysium episode 2, part 1, season 3.
Requiem.
Right. Parabellum.
Right, this is like a Kingdom Hearts 365 days over 2 type situation where I don't even think that game's a sequel to any specific game, so I don't really know what the explanation is for the naming convention. It's also on 3DS. Anyway, that's not the game we're talking about today.
Today we're talking about Jak and Daxter.
The Precursor Legacy. We saw that at the record store the other day.
That's the first one, right?
Yeah, it is the first one.
Weird.
The subtitles are confusing.
Bizarre.
Anyway, no, we're not talking about that either. We're talking about Disco Elysium. I think I already said Disco Elysium.
We're talking about Disco Elysium for the second time, some sort of Disco Elysium 2, but it's just the first one.
Right. You know, Disco Elysium is such a massive game. It contains sequels to itself.
Right. There's actually a full sequel to E.T. the Extraterrestrial hidden in like a side cabinet.
What?
In this? Oh, have you not found that?
Please don't do this to me.
Oh, you gotta start looking now. Anyway, we're still talking about Disco Elysium. Don't let us mislead you.
Yeah, no, this is Holly Chinowsky.
Hello. I was here last time too. Well, last Disco Elysium time.
Yeah. And she'll be here again to talk about our DVD collection.
And other things. Maybe Star Trek 2009 if you get lucky.
Yeah. Is that lucky? I feel like the good timeline is talking about
Next Gen or something.
The TOS movies or something. Right. But no, we're talking about the Abrams ones.
Yeah, no.
But we're not. We're talking about Disco Elysium.
Disco Elysium right now.
So how you been?
I've been pretty good. You know, I've been playing a lot of Disco Elysium as of 1 year ago.
Right. Fresh in your mind.
Yeah, exactly. But it is one of my it is my favorite game of all time, probably. So
I have a little fresher because a couple months ago I watched Nathan play through the entire thing.
Yeah.
But
you micromanaged, you backseat discoed someone.
Yeah, I tried not to, but I didn't try that hard.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I discuss this game with new people every few months, so it's always kind of fresh in my mind.
You're a super spreader.
I've gotten 10 people into this game at this point.
Yeah, honestly, you have to be stopped.
Right.
Hopefully, after this, you will never be able to talk about Disco Elysium again without trauma.
I've gotten it all out of my system. Yeah. Anyway, where did we leave off for the previous one?
Let's see. So, we left off at the end of day 1, in which the player character, Harry Dubois, had just confronted his own hanged body, but it was a dream, so don't worry about it. Dreams don't mean anything.
Yeah, there's definitely, nothing semi-magical going on in this game, either.
Yeah, dreams aren't real. The dream I had last night where I gutted Patrick Stewart with a knife
and got killed by Mario in, some labyrinthine chamber.
Listen, I was pretty close to winning the prize.
Right, second place.
The prize was never clarified in my dream.
Right. Anyway, you wake up. What happens when you wake up?
So you're, regrettably, you're still in the same gross room that you were in before, unless you did the Hobocop route where you can actually sleep in the dumpster.
And which is an improvement on your room.
Right, because you've trashed your room so thoroughly.
Thoroughly.
For the first couple days, there'll be a new person in the whirling every day.
In this case, there's a lot of new people, actually.
There are 7 new people, and 1 old person who is basically a new person. So when you go downstairs, you'll see that curtained-off area that was reserved for the Union is opened up.
And full of the Union, surprisingly.
Holy shit.
Holy fuck.
Holy hell.
Google Hardy Boys.
Who are these guys?
These guys are the Hardy Boys, who are not of Nancy Drew fame, but just unrelated Hardy with an IE.
We really should have looked this up after last time because I swear they're not explicitly connected to Nancy Drew. I'm
pretty sure they're Nancy Drew's friends. I would bet at least $2 on
Why doesn't she have them help?
Because she's like better. I don't know. They're her muscle. She's who she sends when she needs to like rough someone up.
Right. The Hardy Boys in this game serve a similar function.
Anyway, the Hardy Boys are basically the Union enforcers. They're like basically a militia of 7 guys, led by a guy named Titus Hardy of the Hardy Boys.
Right. The other ones are not named Hardy.
Just him. He's kind of like a trucker archetype. Is how I describe.
He does have a trucker hat. He's just like a sort of like brash.
He's extremely square jawed.
Like. You'd expect him, if he were not in Disco Elysium, he'd say like America first type stuff.
He'd be like, I don't want these Samarans in my repertoire, but he's not like that actually.
Yeah, but he definitely looks it.
Yeah.
One video we've seen online draws him like Scout TF2 for some reason.
And like I could see how like if Scout got really like
jacked and like
caveman-ish,
then he would become that guy.
Yeah. There are 6 other Hardy Boy members. We probably should have looked up their names.
We can go through their names. I remember most.
Most of them. It's like Cletus or something. It's not Cletus. But it's
not
similar.
Cletus. There's.
I don't know. There's a blonde one. He's gay.
Yeah, the blonde one is gay. There's the old black guy, Theo, I think.
That's Theo. There's Eugene, who's the musician.
Right.
There's Scrampy,
who's this gross.
He's a rat
creature.
He's the worst.
And there's Angus,
who's like younger and kind of a son figure to Titus.
And he's definitely the least most emotionally
least tough,
vulnerable.
The one who's easiest to open up.
Right.
Who else are we missing?
We're definitely missing at least one. There's Elaine.
Elaine, yeah.
That's the last one.
Elaine he's the Frenchman, right? He's the one with the mustache. Oh, I mean, they're all Frenchmen, but like he's the Frenchman.
Right. He's the Frenchman's Frenchman.
Right.
He has a tracksuit, I think. He's the one with the tracksuit.
He has a tracksuit. He's like bald except for like hair on his side of his head, and he has like a Stalin mustache kind of.
Yeah, he has like the
a walrus mustache a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, all of these guys, for the purposes of the game, mostly these guys function as a single character in that you just talk to them as a mask they jeer at you.
They're Titus and his backup dancers.
Right, they take turns jeering at you and like calling you gay and stuff.
But they all do have very distinct personalities.
Right. And notably there'll be one other person down there that you've seen before.
Do you remember the gardener from the previous day?
We talked about her for like 5 seconds.
She gives you yellow gloves that you can use to open gross things because they give you like +1 interface.
+1 interfacing, but they also have a couple situational things that'll make it easier to do gross stuff.
Anyway, it turns out she's not really a gardener, and she lied to you because lying is her profession because she's a lawyer.
She's a liar.
She's a lawyer.
Yeah, she's basically the union's go-to like fixer type lawyer who
Everett put her through law school. You find out.
Yeah, you can actually find that out by talking to Easy Leo. He'll just like tell you things that are probably supposed to not be common knowledge because he's like that.
She's really mean to you, which is pretty fucked up.
Yeah, it's it kind of hurts because she's just like the most inoffensive, nice person in the first day.
She was so kind to you before, and now she's like not putting up with any of your shit. It's really messed up.
But yeah, you can already tell that the Hardy Boys are having like clashes with her because she's telling them not to say things, and they're very like emotionally like.
And they kind of have their own
motivated
plan for how they want this to go down.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, what the Hardys do when you walk in is they immediately confess to the murder.
They like straight out come out and say that they did it, and they ask you to arrest them, or like quote unquote ask you to arrest them, as in dare you to arrest them.
Right. If you can't attempt to arrest them, I think you will just immediately be beaten
to
death.
You get shot. Yeah.
And that's a game over.
Because there's 2 of you and 7 of them.
Yeah, and they're essentially the law in this part of town, and no one's gonna like be mad about it.
This encounter with the Hardy Boys like completely brings to light how ineffectual the RCM is in Martinez.
Right, which is the district of Revachol that you're in. I don't know if we actually mentioned that.
I don't think we did, but the entire game takes place in a small district in Revachol that's like a slum called Martinez, where the Union and where the dock is, effectively.
Yeah.
It was hit hardest in the Revolution, right?
Yeah, which is why there's craters all over the place for old men to play boule.
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah, so
you and Kim have no power here. There's no backup coming. So there's no way to brute force arresting all of them.
Yeah, they're basically just trying to get you to drop the case by sort of stonewalling you.
Right.
And interestingly, regarding the Hardy Boys like connection to the law, once you like learn that and like figure out that they're essentially the police force around here, your esprit de corps check starts working on them.
Yeah, that's something
cool.
really cool.
It doesn't just work on like official police; it also works on people in that sort of position of authority.
And this is stated very explicitly later on.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So they're just putting up a wall in front of you. Basically, all the evidence is pointing towards them. They say they did it,
but you can't do shit about it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you'll remember the footprints in the mud.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Great minds.
Yeah.
You can sort of match them up. Like some of the footprints are sunk deeper.
Right. For like Angus, who's heavier. Or
right. Or like lighter people or smaller people.
Skranky.
The gross monster that is Skranky. And you can tell that they were the like dock workers' boots that they're wearing match up with the footprints, but if you pass a pretty easy visual calculus check, you'll realize that there is one set of footprints that is unaccounted for. It doesn't fit with anyone else.
Yeah, and you can ask Titus about this, and I don't remember what he says.
I'm pretty sure he just tells you to fuck off.
Right.
He does with everything.
At this point, getting any leeway with Titus is very, very difficult.
Right.
It becomes easier later on.
Right, as you sort of figure him out and figure out how to work these people.
And as honestly, you make him like him more. You make him like you more a little bit.
But one thing Titus will tell you right off the bat is why they did it.
Right. So as we've I don't know if we've mentioned before, the hanged man was wearing fancy.
Yeah, we did talk about this.
Well, fancy ceramic armor that is indicative that he was a member of like a mercenary group.
Right. This armor is like essentially priceless. No one in this town could afford it unless they were
bought and supplied by PMCs, effectively.
Right. One specific PMC.
Right. A mercenary corporation called Crenell.
You can learn about this from Joyce. She doesn't try to hide it. She's very open about like what happened
through talking with Joyce and the Hardys. You can kind of put together a story that after negotiations with the Union between Wild Pines and the Union started to go south, Wild Pines brought in mercenaries to break the strike effectively.
Yeah, 3 of them.
Yeah.
And
4 of them.
Well, you don't know that yet.
Right.
Everyone seems to think there's 3 of them.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that because
right. We'll get to that, but there are technically 4. You kind of spoiled that one.
Don't worry, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of a cool bit in the end.
Yeah. Anyway.
So.
There was a 2 men and a woman is how they describe it, right?
Right, and the Union vastly outnumbers them, but Joyce compares it to a
hornet in a
bee's nest,
yeah.
Where the actual fun fact regarding hornets and bees is that the bees will like crowd around it and flap their wings to bake the hornet to death in its own skin,
which is pretty cool.
But
unfortunately, the Hardys can't do that.
Right, they don't have wings.
They don't have wings, and they don't have like like heat machines that can just kill them. Yeah.
They use like an Archimedes mirror style device to fry the mercenaries.
The Hardys bring out like the Ark of the Covenant.
That picture was actually of
of Titus, Angus, Skranky, and Eugene.
Yeah, holding their stupid Jewish death laser box.
Right. Anyway, the comparison that she brings up is that the Hardys might be able to bring down one or two of them, but they'll suffer heavy casualties in doing it.
Right. And she thinks that the Union kind of wants to sort of let people that Everett kind of wants this to sort of become a war that he can use to gain power and like get further.
Everett is kind of prepping for revolution, basically.
Right. And he will actually tell you this.
He will fully admit it.
He's very open about his dedication to the cause.
Yeah.
But since he's such like a sarcastic and unreadable asshole, you have no idea if he's serious or not.
He's fully dedicated to social democracy, which doesn't really have the same meaning as it does in like the modern day US. It has more of an antiquated like German Revolution type meaning, which means like kind of social democracy as of now and kind of communism in a different sense.
Well, that kind of makes sense being in a country that had a revolution so comparatively recently.
Yeah. It's like the SPD in the German Revolution more than like Democrat more than like the DSA of now.
So I
don't know if you care about this.
I don't care, but I'll let you go.
Anyway,
the mercenaries were sort of just like roughing people up and causing trouble in town.
They were rowdy. They were drinking a lot in the whirling, and specifically Titus mentions that they raped one of the women.
Yeah.
Who the Hardys are like friendly with in the whirling.
Yeah, so this woman is actually apparently still in the whirling, and Titus says she's upstairs. You can go talk to her right now.
Right. And
this seems a little bit convenient for this whole story they're trying to spell out, but we'll see.
Right. Cogs begin to turn in your mind as you go up to talk to her.
Yeah, it's Miss Oranje disco dancer, Classia from before. She is on the roof. If you're walking around in day 2 without sort of progressing the Hardy
you can see her.
Dialogue, you can just kind of like see her up there.
If you're zoomed out.
Yeah. But what was I going to say?
When you first talk to her, you have a series of negative modifiers for saying
for being all horny on the first day.
For being horny, remembering saying you don't remember being a cop, saying you don't remember the world.
Right.
Asking her what money is.
Yeah, it's almost like comedic
right.
as you just like hover over the check and see it's like -6.
Right.
You're a moron.
Right. How many things you've done to make her not take you seriously.
But anyway, immediately she's like, yeah, I'm sure they told you that when you asked her about if she was raped or if anything happened regarding the...
She's not on the same page as them regarding why they did what they did.
The thing about Classia is she never tells you like an actual fact. She'll just say, yeah, I'm sure.
Right, yeah. She is a huge pain to work around.
Right. But she'll basically tell you that yes, she and the mercenary who's hanged outside were
they were like sexually involved but it was consensual
and she is more than a little disturbed seeing his body hanging outside her window at the hotel for a week, basically.
Yeah. So at this point it starts to look more and more like the Hardys hanged him for being like a mercenary breaking their strike and for having sex with someone who they were interested in.
Right, and just generally being a nuisance, and they sort of use this as an easy...
It's not painting them very well right now.
The Hardys do at this point look like a group of
like a
power-hungry murderous thugs.
Yeah, they don't look so good.
And, yeah, So you can go back down to them and say, Klasia said you're full of shit, and they'll actually be like, no, we have it on tape.
Right. They'll just be like, no, she's lying.
Yeah, she does that.
Right. And so they have a tape of basically, like, called the Door Gunner Mega Mix.
Right. I don't know why it's called that.
Yeah,
but,
it's never really explained.
But, yeah, the reason they think Klasia is, well... Like, if you know Klasia, you'll know that she lies about basically everything. But
it doesn't
this is
seem
one
like
of the
she's
few
lying
things that it seems like she's definitively telling the truth about.
Yeah, and their evidence is a tape of the mercenary kind of like basically bragging about having sex with Klasia in a misogynistic and violent sounding way.
And you can go to the pawn shop and get a tape player to listen to it. And I'm pretty sure Kim tells you that this is basically just like extremely trashy, like locker room talk type stuff.
It's not evidence, but it is evidence that the mercenary was kind of a huge piece of shit.
Right. They probably weren't lying about that, and pretty much everyone will tell you that, including Joyce.
Right. Anyway, so you have this evidence. But right now, Klasia is talking to you about how disturbing it is that the mercenary is still out there.
It seems like if she's a piece of this puzzle, it might be an easy way to get on her good side by doing your job and taking the body out of the tree. So
there are a few different. So the body, you've already done a cursory inspection of it with the footprints and looking at it from the tree.
Yeah.
But you have to get it down to inspect it more thoroughly. There are a few ways to do this.
Right. You can't simply just climb up the tree and like saw it off because
there are like children's ladder
but
things.
You're like a 200-pound man who will...
and your mind tells you that you will fall and break your neck.
Right. And you can't just sort of like untie him. He's
very high up.
Yeah, and it's an extra thick strap
straps.
Mercenary or from the harbor.
Union, yeah.
That like they use to fasten
containers
together or something.
Industrial stuff.
Right. So your first thought, which is very much in character for a crazy man, is to
shoot it down.
Shoot it down.
This is what I did.
Right.
You borrow Kim's pistol, and there's a...
Well, first Kim tries to shoot it down, but he's a Beanaclard who only passed his test by his like accuracy test at the station for like... He only passed it by like 1
just
point.
Just barely, yeah.
Yeah. So he misses it, and he only has a limited number of bullets, and he doesn't want to...
I think
he has more bullets.
Well, he has two in the gun,
but he doesn't want to waste them on your stupid idea. So he says, "I'll give you one shot, like after you poke and prod him enough."
Yeah,
let me use your gun.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a hand-eye coordination check to shoot the body down, which does include a non-standard game over.
Right. Kuno S and Kuno are still there. Apparently, these kids have fucking nothing better to do. You'll find out about that later, but they don't have anything better to do, so they just sit there and shit on you the whole time.
And keep taunting you, and Kuno stands up from behind the fence and taunts you into shooting her.
Right. She basically tells you, go on, shoot me.
And you can do it.
Yeah, you can.
It ends
Kim
the
will
game
be
instantly.
Like, what?
Kim will be like,
what? How?
No. Yeah, Kim will like soy jack over the fact that you're shooting a child.
Right. You'll get a comedic like comedy smash cut to a newspaper showing how you've been imprisoned.
I'm pretty sure he just says "don't" when you point the gun at her. Yeah. But if you fire, you get a newspaper headline like all the other game overs that says "deranged cop shoots child."
Right. I mean, she was kind of asking for it.
Right. Like she kind of like
she very literally was asking for it, and also she deserved it.
Of any child, she deserved it the most.
Right. Stupid babies need the most attention.
Right.
No, but yeah. So if you, it's a pretty hard check to shoot it down.
It's like a 20% for me, I think.
Well, it depends on how much you have put into your hand-eye coordination stat.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's very doable.
If you do shoot it down, you'll get a fun little interaction with Kim.
Right. So there, Kim has something going on with like aviation.
Yeah, he's like an aviation buff.
Oh,
he's
like me. He's just like me.
Yeah.
He's wearing a flight jacket, and when you shoot the body down, he has you go in for an Aces High, which is a high five, and you can learn is like an old revolutionary pilot.
Right. In this universe, not just anyone does high fives.
Just
it's a
pilots.
pilot
Yeah,
thing.
it's like a badass Top Gun kind of thing.
It's like in Metroid Other M where they like made the thumbs up like a thing Samus does.
Right, or in the Sonic movie where he creates the power bomb.
Right, yeah. No, what the hell's a fist bump?
Right, no, it's a power
Neglecting
bomb.
that the most recent Sonic game at the time had a song in it called Fist Bump.
No, it was called Power Bump. You're misremembering.
Oh yeah, silly me.
Right. Anyway, if you like do the check extra well, you can realize that you're supposed to follow it up with an Aces Low, which is a low
high,
five.
Low,
yeah, it's like down low too slow,
high
but
five,
you're not
low
too
five.
slow. Yeah, high five, low five. And that gets you a thought where that basically just makes Kim like you more.
Right. So yeah, that's basically the first way you can get the body down. The other way is much less glamorous, and it does sort of, unfortunately, give Everard even more power over you, but you can ask him to have Measurehead take it down. And, like,
Measurehead being a mountain.
Like, you hear, like, the screen comedically shake off
Right.
screen, and then he's like, I did it.
I did it. Your tree betrays your no longer having a body.
Right, like, he literally, I think he just rips the branch
sure,
off
yeah.
the tree. I don't know how he reached that. He's not 11 feet tall.
He's like
6'8".
6 feet.
Yeah.
He's like 7 feet tall.
So yeah, now that the body is down, you can commence with the proper autopsy,
Which involves you on a checklist while
you
Kim...
filling out the paperwork while Kim like dictates his observations to you.
Yeah.
Because likely you threw up attempting to examine the body, so Kim probably doesn't think it's wise to put you right next to the crime scene.
Right. There's a few things you learn about it. There's a tattoo on the mercenary's shoulder.
Right. It's on his entire back actually, and it's sort of, you can pass an encyclopedia check to realize that this is like an old like sailor's star map.
Yeah,
almost.
It's like an array of stars that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can use Kim's camera to snap a photo of this, which will stay in your inventory forever. I don't really know what the purpose of that is.
You can show it to people.
Yeah, you can show it to people just like you can with the racist mug.
I think that I think you got to check earlier on to figure it out, because I didn't get that, and I figured it out way later by showing it to someone.
Probably showing it to Joyce or something.
I was showing it to Joyce. She had some idea but wouldn't tell me until I like did something for her.
Right, as Joyce loves to do.
Right.
But anyway, so you're just filling this out and being met with a series of increasingly comedic joke things you can write down.
Right. You have 3 options for each thing, I think, usually. And like for example, when you're sexing the body, you have 3 options. Kim, you reach sex. Kim says male. Kuno says pig's gonna have sex, and Kuno says fucky. And you have an option to write down male, pig's gonna have sex, or fucky.
Some of these are more serious, like you can decline to note the boots on the body if you want to steal them later.
Right.
Well, Kim's not around. Kim won't let you try and take the boots off the body.
So that forensics doesn't like hunt you down afterwards.
Right. Kim won't let you take them off because they're like basically glued to
and
his
also
feet from
evidence.
the rotting. But they're cool and they're valuable.
Right, they're badass. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some other things about them? You can his age.
Right.
And you can actually correct Kim on this, because he thinks that he's older than he is, but you can note that it's due to decomposition.
Right. You know this because your body is decomposing while you're still alive.
Right, but due to alcohol instead of being hanged from a tree. Like
right.
This is something. This is a cool parallel in the game. Just like your body was hanging in the tree in the dream, the hanged man's face is bloated from being hanged. Your face is bloated from alcohol abuse.
Right.
And you're both like it's a very interesting theme about how you're both like on the way to your death and such, you know.
important thing during the autopsy is you can write down the cause of death. Kim thinks it's hanging because he was hung.
Of course.
Not like that.
I mean, like, that's what you find out.
Right. Classier
Fucky.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Your Inland Empire, which has sort of been allowing you to commune with the spirit of the dead man,
right,
sort of lets you know that, like, nope, there's more going on here.
Right. You find out that he was killed by communism and done in by love.
Right, but like this game says bullshit
like, what
stuff
the
like
fuck
that,
does that
like all the time. You're probably just gonna forget about that.
Yeah, like that's something you should note down in your mind. But also, like, what the fuck?
Like, this game loves to just like say things that don't mean anything.
Yeah, I think those two things. The Hanged Man says communism killed him. And Inland Empire said he was done in by love.
Though, yeah. No, it's love killed him, but communism pulled the trigger.
Right. Well, no, that's later on. Yeah. Love did him in is how it phrases it earlier on.
Well, anyway. So if you're willing to listen to this weird superstitious cortex of your brain that's telling you that there's more afoot and to put your hand inside a dead man's rotting mouth,
right? Because you have you like your psychic brain describes it as like something in the yawing chasm of his esophagus,
right? Like ew,
like describing it like as if it's like a black hole or some like leviathan creature,
right? So, when you're done with the autopsy, Kim will be like, all right, I'm going to take this body down to the morgue, and you can either let him, in which he will leave for the rest of the day, leaving you all alone.
No, my friend.
You can actually do important stuff in the plot while Kim isn't there, which will result in you just getting, like, even more
It's drastically changed, too, because, like, with the thing that we're going to talk about later where you confront the Hardys, mm-hmm. Kim helps you on that a lot.
Right. It'll just result in you getting even more epically owned by everyone than you already are.
Anyway, so if you don't choose to let Kim take the body to the morgue, you have to find somewhere to store it.
Right. For some reason, you decide to ask Kuno. I think he's just there and he, like, yells at you, Kuno has a fridge! Right. Your first instinct is to store it in the Whirling in Rags kitchen.
Gart's not a fan.
Gart fucking shoots you for that one.
Right. This is where you find out that Gart actually killed the Hanged Man, and the story resolves right there.
Right. Gart is a mass murderer. You just need to get him pissed off enough.
Right. Exactly. It's where, like, at the end of a detective story where someone just, like, blubbers and confesses. That's exactly what happens.
One more thing.
Right. I saw you do it. Anyway. You're not allowed to do it in the Whirling because Gart will send his guys after you. So you have to search somewhere else. One
of the buildings next door to the Whirling in Rags has a call box, and one of the like addresses or like business names on the call box is Revachol Ice City.
Right.
And Kuno also mentions something implying it
Kuno's
might be in
fucking
that
Ice City.
Right, exactly. Implying it might be in that building, so that's sort of where we pick up the thread that we sort of left off with the bookstore and the door that has all, like, the magic runes around it.
Remember the superstitious runes? Well, if you have a high enough pain threshold, you can bash it down.
Right. The bookstore owner, Plaisance, will yell at you in the most annoying voice possible the whole time, but won't actually stop you.
And I did it, like, 6 times in a row, so I like...
Right. Your character, canonically, your Harry is just very stupid.
My shoulder is, like, turned to dust at this point.
Right.
But you can eventually make it in, and the first thing you find in there is a gym with an abandoned gym with some weights.
Weirdly enough, these weights are calling to you, and you can either try and lift them, in which you get nothing, or you cannot lift them, and you don't get anything back.
You feel a psychic connection to the weights.
But, like, when you do, like, the deadlift with, like, the weights,
right,
it's like it feels like this is what you were made for.
It feels powerful. Yeah. This is what you were designed to
do.
But
it's physical instrument telling you that. He's like a jock.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who told you that when a man gives 110%, he must piss himself. So,
I think that's true.
I think that's super true. I think he should be trusted.
Right.
Anyway, you can go upstairs from the gym to find a variety of other failed businesses. A propeller company that was
went out of business and had its assets bought by a ski company
who tried to repurpose the propellers as skis,
and then also went out of business. It's not hard to see why this place is called the Doomed Commercial Area. Everything in it
it's full of doomed commercials
immediately. One of the more interesting ones is Fortress Accident, which is a game publishing studio, or a game development studio.
Who were attempting to make a kind of, like, online dial-up MMO D&D game, the first of its kind.
Right. The D&D analog in this game is called Whirl.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's nearly identical.
But, yeah, this is very unsubtly just like the developers talking about game development.
It's very, very cool. It's they explicitly say that the game was crowdfunded and went or like funded by some investor and went wildly over budget, which is what happened with Disco Elysium.
There is a part that is like particularly satirical, where it's just like the developers were running out of money, so they decided to create a giant valley with hundreds of heads, each of which has unique dialogues and can be put onto hundreds of different bodies.
Right. Basically, they started doing like Kickstarter promises that they couldn't fulfill.
Right.
Until they eventually.
It shows that their logs say that eventually people just stopped coming to work
because they just ran out of money and could not pay people.
Right.
You can find in this room a radio computer with nothing to do with it right now.
Radio computers are what they sound like. They're a computer that you access by talking to someone on the radio.
Yeah, it's like a phone operator.
Yeah, it's like a combination between like a phone operator and like a 50s punch card computer.
Yeah, like what they have at NASA.
In the 50s,
in the movie Hidden Figures.
Right. Sure. Yeah, no,
nothing to do with that right now, but there is a tape that you can take from this area.
Well, it's not really a tape, it's like a cube.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The way that, like, memory is stored on these radio computers is in these, like, Borg cube-looking devices.
Yeah. like a holocron or something.
Right. It looks very futuristic. This is sort of another big sort of hint that just because you think like certain things happened in certain years, like radio computers were invented in the 20s.
Right, and this is not like we've mentioned in the first episode. This isn't like a alternate history like 1930s. This is things that happened in the 80s have happened now, and things that happened in the 20s haven't happened yet.
Yeah, and things that haven't happened to us have happened in the world. Like
right,
they have
exactly.
like floating machines that I don't remember what they're called.
They're called aerostatics.
Yeah, they have aerostatics. They don't even have airplanes.
They're like magic, like multi-dimensional blimps.
Right.
They're weird. We'll talk about this more later.
Right, but essentially, it just goes to show how different like the technology tree is in the world of Disco Elysium.
The setting is a mash of different things that you'll recognize but don't seem like they go together normally.
Right. The last main thing on this like street level of the Doom commercial area is a shuttered door that's like a garage door that is sort of like bolted shut. And you can slam on it, because of course you can, because Harry's a weirdo.
Right.
And
assault against the physical world.
Right, and nothing will happen.
And so, that's on the top floor, but you can go back down. Funny fact about this is one of the only like dark places in the game that requires a flashlight.
Right. And like... It won't auto-equip the flashlight, but Kim will just be like, "What are you, fucking stupid? Put on the flashlight."
Kim like when Kim has something to say to you at like important points in the story, a little speech bubble will appear on his character icon. Uh-huh. That same thing will also happen whenever you don't equip a flashlight in dark areas. And I kept getting excited, like, "Oh, Kim has something to say to me," but he was just telling me to stop being a dumbass.
Flashlight, jackass.
Right.
But anyway, the most important thing down in the bottom of the Doomed commercial area, like sort of in like the basement, like
is
the
Ice
boiler
City.
room, is Revachol Ice City,
which is
a failed ice cream shop that tried to sell snack treats out of a bear corpse.
A giant fridge that's made out of a bear that Kim surmises cause them to go out of business because it's fucking terrifying.
There's also like a hermetically sealed ice cream machine that I can't remember what skill tells you this, but a skill check is basically like if you tried to use your crowbar on this, it would snap it.
Yeah, no, like it is impossible to open right now, and Kim says you would need a stronger pry bar.
And you're like, oh, I didn't know this game had like upgrades.
Right, we need to get
doesn't.
like three trillite to craft a better pry bar.
Right, diamond pry bar.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, you can also find a sort of shortcut back to the courtyard behind back to the courtyard behind the Whirling in Rags where the man's body currently is. So you can drag it down and stick it inside that terrifying bear fridge.
And Kim says this is the worst thing he's ever done as a police officer.
I don't know. It seems kind of cool to me.
Right, it seems pretty sick. Also in this area, if you search around a little bit, you'll find an old revolutionary weapons cache from the Communard Revolution, like it was 50 years ago or something.
Yeah, fairly recently. Most of these weapons are rusted out.
Antique bolt-action rifles.
But it is important to know that investigating a murder, the cause of death you're still not sure about. There are guns all over the place.
There are weapons just cached all over the city from the Revolutionary time period. You also just take one of the guns as kind of a souvenir.
Yeah, It doesn't work.
It does not, like you like it. They explicitly say like it's not like you're collecting weapons for future combat. Like this is just a cool thing to have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can like ask the pawn shop owner about it, but I'm not sure if that thread ever actually goes.
It doesn't.
Anywhere.
I'm pretty sure it just says it's worth a certain amount, but like I don't.
Yeah.
Really. Anyway, so that's something you'll have in your inventory from now on. And it might be important to now talk about that weird Inland Empire check that you got at the end of the field autopsy.
So, what's going on in the dead man's throat? I actually did this in the middle of the night when Kim wasn't there because I used it as a 2-for-1 to steal the boots off of him.
Really? I never stole the boots, so I just did it like while he was there, and he thought it was gross but really good. Like he said it was really good work or something.
Right. So basically, through a series of increasingly viscerally disturbing checks, you can reach down into the corpse's throat
and pull like something out, something shiny.
Go into a little like side passage and pull out a antique bullet.
Right. A slightly deformed but no exit wound stuck in the dead man's throat.
Right. Notably, this is not a bullet that the weapons the Hardy Boys had.
Right. It's not a pistol bullet for one. Well, actually, you don't find this out until later. You have to send this to forensics to find this out.
Really? I'm pretty sure I just passed a check or something.
There's so many different threads in this game. Yeah, no. I had to send it back to the precinct to find out exactly what it was. But it's a bullet, it's evidence, and it gives you information on the way he was killed. So the cause of death is now gunshot wound.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about this. I guess we'll talk about getting the boots off. You can't do this while Kim's there, so you want to wait till he goes to sleep to sneak back out of your room and giggle evilly.
I'm getting these fancy ceramic boots. It's funny because you can wear them in front of him.
Right, and if you do wear them in front of him, you'll be like, got anything to say about my new boots? And he'll be like, if anyone asks about this, I'm just going to turn you in. Anyway. No one ever asks about it, though. But anyway, basically it's just an interfacing check, but it's significantly easier when the body is frozen.
Because you're not going to pull his legs off.
Right. And once you get it off, you do a horrifying process where you boil the boots inside a giant pot in the Whirling in Rags kitchen, and it creates death soup.
That's the extra stuff that Gorsy Kubek puts in the stuff for the puts in the borscht for the union.
Right, but an extremely ridiculously high half-light check will be like, drink the soup. Drink the soup.
What happens if you drink the soup?
No, it's just like a passive check.
Having
half-light tell you
you have no choice. Yeah.
The Final Cut update added in a lot of just weirdly high skill checks.
A lot of encyclopedia ones.
Yeah, and
which is so much effort too.
And just like an electrochemistry checks for like just like walking down the street and stuff. It's cool.
We mentioned this in the first episode, but the skill cabinet specifically tells you that if you have too high in any particular skill, you'll become like obsessive and incompetent, but because through overuse of that skill.
You'll no longer be a balanced person who can actually get things done.
Like if you have too high encyclopedia, you'll become like an idiot babbling trivia the whole time.
Yeah, I think we did talk about
we mentioned this, yeah.
So anyway, that's basically everything in the Doom commercial area, with one exception. The dice maker.
Right. So when you there's like a wood stove basically in the
it's like a coal burning chute. It's not wood, it's metal.
I was saying like a wood fire stove, like a that you would burn
like a charcoal stove.
Exactly, yeah.
That, presumably to heat the building.
Yeah, that has some sort of voice coming through it that
you can hear someone humming from up at the top of the chute.
That you instantly think is the curse, the witch who hides in the Doom commercial area.
The evil spirit that Plaisance is so scared of.
Right. So you can assault the stove for one thing,
which I'm pretty sure will literally make you take a point of physical damage. It
does, because you like stub your toe too hard.
Unless you're wearing those awesome boots.
Right, pretty badass. This is part of a assault against the physical world thought. That also applies to mailboxes and other inanimate items.
Harry is like a weirdo, and he'll just like punch and like kick and beat up random objects.
Right, he's going to
war at his whims. Yeah. The world will not be safe until there's nothing in it.
Right. But you can also call up the chute, and that will allow you to unlock or allow you to go through the metal grate at the top.
Right. The person will be like, "Hold on, I'll unlock the grate, and you can come up and talk to me."
Right. And so the whole atmosphere of the Doom commercial area is very like dark and depressing. But once you go through
the soundtrack is just like basically droning and monotonous.
Once you go through the gate, it all changes into like a warm, not cheery, but kind of like
homey.
It has like an incense sound to it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
It's a very like home within nowhere area where there's just like a bunch of stuff stuck to the side of this coal chute, and there's vines growing through it,
and a large window that's letting a lot of sun in.
Right. It's very like Ghibli movie.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like Castle in the Sky or something.
Right.
And sitting there is a woman in with her hair tied back in a bandana, called the Dice Maker.
Right. She makes dice for like weirdo rich collectors of this Whirl game we're talking about.
Right. She makes epic custom dice that you can buy on eBay or Etsy.
Yeah. If you're probably thinking, how the hell did she stay in business? Does Revachol really have a thriving D&D community who's always buying new dice?
We're gonna say yes.
I guess so.
I mean, that's what the Hardys do on Friday nights.
Right. They play D&D.
Yeah. There's surely some like Tumblr AU 700-page long fan fiction about that.
Right, about the Hardys going to boarding school,
right,
and
exactly.
on the weeknights they get together to play D&D.
Yeah. But you can discuss the curse with her, and she's honestly, interestingly, she's kind of an ultra liberal character.
Yeah, she's basically just like, none of these places died because of some curse. They all just are really, really stupid business ideas.
She's a self-made businesswoman.
Right. She, interestingly, had a jewelry business before she was making these dice that also failed and was also in the Doomed commercial area. But even she just thinks she didn't hit the right niche of the market or whatever.
Right, and she has now with her custom dice.
I guess so.
Anyway, there's a few interesting things you can do with her. Some of them aren't so important. One of them is that you can ask her to make dice for you, which takes a few days.
It takes 8 hours.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
I must have just gone back later.
But anyway, these dice will like let you retry checks and give certain modifiers to checks. They're like a weird part of the game that I didn't really go into, just because you only have a couple. The game's only a couple days long. You're probably not going to be running back and forth to commission dice from her all the time.
Depending, you can actually only do one.
You can do more than one once you've gotten your first one.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood though. I only got the first one.
Well, there's like I think 8 different dice, all of which give you different buffs on different skills and stuff.
And the thing that might be the most important about them is that if you find her later on, each die unlocks all
checks from a certain like skill.
Yeah, which can be very, very helpful because it means that you don't have to put more points into that skill.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is just a video gamey mechanic thing, not important to the real thing of the Dice Maker, which is figuring out...
Most people will probably never actually use the dice for their intended purpose.
The important thing about the Dice Maker is you get I think it's a shivers check.
Yeah, to figure out why she survived in the Doom commercial area.
And you have 2 possible conclusions.
Well, one of them isn't a conclusion, it's just you being a weirdo.
One of them is taking your pants off.
Right.
You get too overwhelmed by the
sensory spiritual connection or whatever that you're trying to establish with this building.
You get too hot, and the sensory overload means that you need to cool down and take your pants off.
Now my pants are chafing me.
Right. But if you succeed, you realize that the reason that she hasn't been affected is that she's actually not a part of the doomed commercial area.
Yeah, she's inside the chimney, which is technically a different building.
This is like the intense like law-based metaphysics of the curse.
Right. If you build an attachment onto the side of this building, it's not part of the building actually.
Right. Which is why she's okay and why Gart's okay.
Right.
Or
the Whirling in Rags is technically connected via that call box, so you can ask Gart about this, and you can tell that this has actually been something he's worried about.
You would expect Gart to like laugh this off as something that like would be like too superstitious for him.
Right.
But he is actually worried about being connected with the curse.
Right, which I think is kind of silly and a weird little humanizing moment for Gart, who's kind of like a financial villain of the start of the game.
Right. And after this conversation with Gart, you can change your conclusion. Not that she's free of the curse and Gart's free of the curse, but that the whole area used to be part of one building, and so everyone is in danger.
Right. Yeah, this game has a number of different occasions in which you can determine that an apocalypse is coming. No one will be spared.
Right. This is something we haven't discussed very much, but once you get your ledger, in addition to it marking down points for different types of politics that you've agreed with, you also get different capo types,
which are basically just like a bunch of different trackers for strange things that you do.
Right, there you can be a superstar cop, which I think of as the most canon one.
Right.
Where you're just
a rock star.
Yeah, deluded rock star.
Who thinks you're in like a show, who thinks you're like a Columbo type genius.
The apocalypse cop, which is what Cass was just describing, where you warn people that the end is nigh.
Right. You can also become an art cop where everything's shit and you're an unending critic.
Right. And you can become a boring cop.
Which is what happened to me, sadly.
Right. Or you just do your job. That's what Kim is.
You do the right thing. That's probably what would be best for the world, but it's not what's most fun.
It's not what's interesting.
There's also the sorry cop, which is me in real life.
Right. I got the sorry cop because I was trying to like be
damage control,
be accommodating, but I just kept apologizing for everything I did when I didn't remember.
Like, I think this is kind of entertaining that you fucked stuff up so much that you can apologize over and over and over, and it will never be enough.
Right. And people will like start to make fun of you for apologizing too much.
Yeah, the capo type like presents itself as a gameplay mechanic and then immediately like laughs at you for taking it seriously as a gameplay mechanic. It's like, oh yeah, you can dual capo type with anything else.
I'm pretty sure I got the something we didn't mention in too much detail because I couldn't remember her name last time. Mm-hmm. But Sylvie, the Whirling in Rags employee who was there when you actually like did all your stuff.
Yeah, you scared her off and she basically left.
You can call her around the same time that you do the station call, There's a few different things that happen here. For one thing, it's possible that at this point you're very attached to the idea that you need to like defend her from Gart's romantic advances through the inexplicable feminist agenda thought.
Right.
Which isn't true. They're just kind of like flirtatious with each other.
But Gart is heartbroken because she was too busy dealing with your insanity to go out with him. And you can tell
him that she doesn't want to see him because he's like too creepy towards her.
Right. You can be the
you
worst.
Lie. And the other thing is that when you're talking about how like when she's talking about how drunk you acted and how like horrible you were, you can just keep on apologizing, and that's when I got the sorry cop.
I'm sorry.
Because you can get like 5 sorry cop points in that conversation.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure 5 is the threshold before you're prompted to choose one.
Once you reach like a certain level in any of the politics or any of the combo types, you get a thought or like a around your head thought that tells you what's going on and gives you a choice of whether you want to be that.
Yeah, and you can accept those choices and then never actually internalize the thoughts in your thought cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just how it is. We should talk about the politics more.
At the end when we get to the Vision Quest dream.
Right, which is at day 3.
Yes. One more thing regarding the phone. You can also call the phone. You can call the station to have them give you more information about the body armor, which will sort of start you on the quest to collect it all.
Right. You just need to it's like forensic stuff that they're analyzing. You need a serial number as the thing, right?
So there's a serial number on the bottom of the boots if you steal them off.
Yep. And that takes a day. I think.
A lot of these things are just sort of long-term things that you can sort of wait for it to happen. Anyway. What were we talking about that got us here?
The dice maker.
Yeah.
And then after your information that the hanged man wasn't hanged but was shot. You can take this information back to the Hardy Boys, along with the fact that you don't think that Claudia was raped.
Yeah. And you can also talk to Everard, and he'll basically say, I'll make them cooperate with you.
Right.
Because he really wants to be on your good side. He wants to make it look like he has the police in his pocket.
Because he's planning for a revolution, effectively, and it would be nice to have the violent arm of the state on his side.
Right. So basically, all of these line up to give you bonuses on a super hard authority check with the Hardy Boys.
This is one of my favorite parts in the entire game. Through a few checks and dialogue options, you determine that Angus, like we said before, is the weakest of the group, and you make him crack through a series of questions.
Right. There are several amusing offshoots of this if you do things wrong, one of which includes taking Kim's gun and threatening to shoot yourself in the head.
Which you actually can do.
It's another non-standard game over.
Yeah. Please tell me how
if you don't do this,
I'm gonna kill myself.
He's crazy. No one knows what he's gonna do.
But through this, you get described as the human can opener.
Right.
A something that's said about you by both your colleagues and the Hardy Boys that
you crack people open.
You crack people open with like incredible precision and persistence.
Right. So learning that Angus is the weak link, you can essentially push him until he like emotionally spouts out that no, we didn't kill him.
That they didn't do it. And which raises a lot more questions.
And at this, Liz basically just throws her hands up in the air and walks out.
Right.
Because they've one job.
They've fucked it. They've completely fucked it.
Yeah. And it's not nearly as simple as it might have seemed.
This opens up a lot more options with the Hardy Boys.
Including them actually beginning to sort of work with you.
Right. Because they don't need to put up a facade anymore.
Right.
They're no longer suspects, for one thing.
Right, they definitely did, were the ones who actually tied him up and strung him up, but he was already dead.
Right, like that's unequivocal at this point,
mm-hmm.
But they did, like, and you can actually figure this out, through, some interesting forensics checks on how long he was dead before the,
right.
Before, like, the bloating from hanging set in.
Right.
There's a few different ways to figure this out. You don't actually need to find the bullet.
Mm-hmm. You don't need to find it, but it does help.
You don't even need to inspect the body.
Right. There is an achievement on Steam for beating the game without inspecting the body.
But it's just like a whole bunch of like talking with Klasia and the Hardys, as far as I know.
Right.
Actually, I'm pretty sure to get that achievement, you need to like not even look at the body.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's probably enough of like the main plot for day 2.
Right.
This is about how far I got before I got distracted
Same.
with the a million other things that you can do on day 2.
Yeah, the upshot of day 2 is that the Hardys said they did it, but they really didn't.
He was shot.
Yeah.
Interestingly, something that's sort of tangentially related to this is that the window behind the Hardy Boys, when you're holding down right click to like sort of highlight all the interactables, it shows up as a giant green interactable, and you click on it, it's like there's something weird about this window.
There's something shiny.
Yeah, and if you sort of manipulate the Hardy Boys right, one of them,
it's Theo. It's the old man.
will get fed up and pass you the shiny thing that's connected to the window just to piss the rest of them off.
Right, because he does not give a shit.
Right, he's the level of old where he no longer cares what anyone thinks of him.
Right. Anyway, so you now have in your hand a key that you can ask Guard about.
Right, and this key actually goes to the mysterious blue door in the whirling kitchen, behind which you will find pinball machines.
Machine, which opens a very, very good part of Kim's backstory.
Right.
And I've also realized we're still leading into more main story stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah, but we're not talking about who they think did it.
Right, exactly. So there's a pinball machine called Gertie's Goats,
mm-hmm.
which you can play. And Kim seems very averse to for some reason.
Right, with an empathy check, I think it is, you can, or maybe it's an esprit de corps check.
You can determine that he is intimately familiar with pinball, which is why he's so averse to it. And asking him about it, he explains that when he was a junior officer, he infiltrated an underground pinball ring.
Right.
I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean.
He worked his way up the ranks, becoming the best at pinball to shut it down from the inside.
Right. He gained their trust by becoming a pinball wizard.
This is cartoons.
Right.
This is cartoony. I have no idea.
It's super, like, what's an underground pinball ring?
Yeah, and one thing I love about this game is it will just say things like that and then not feel that it needs to explain.
Right, that's just taken as a given, like dog fighting or something.
Yeah, like, are they betting on pinball?
Right.
What's going on?
Does this involve, like, extortion and violence?
Right. It sounds like it.
It sounds, like, when he describes it, it sounds like it's like a, juvenile delinquent kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the Jets are running an underground pinball ring.
Well, okay. Yeah, and while he was working his way up, Kimball Kitsuragi was his nickname.
And you can call him that.
Right, and he will be so incredibly mad at you, but he'll keep his composure and not say anything.
I'm pretty sure you can't keep calling him that, because if you did, he would just leave.
Right, he would kill you.
Right.
It's like if you fail the dancing check.
Yeah. He basically authority checks you into saying that you won't call him that, and you have to subside.
But anyway, you can play pinball. It doesn't really do anything. It's just sort of a fun little interaction with a bunch of different yellow checks, like interfacing and
I save scummed this part.
Yeah, because it's fun.
It's so fun. You can discuss. So Gertie's Goats is a pinball machine that's themed around.
It's like a Marco Polo type.
Yeah, I was thinking like Christopher Columbus or something.
Yeah.
A guy who through discussion with Kim was a horrible imperialist who.
Yeah, so he is kind of like a Christopher Columbus type analog.
Who massacred and raped the natives.
Right. And they made a pinball machine out of him.
where he has goats, because he was like exploring like this game's analog for Nepal or something.
Right. But yeah, it's fun. It's pinball.
It's pinball. The balls are goats. They look like they're like jumping around when you're doing the pinball.
Yeah, I don't really know how that's supposed to work, but luckily you don't see it. It's just explained in text. Anyway, the whole pinball thing fucked Kim up so much that he doesn't even like to look at children anymore.
Right, but eventually, if you're good enough at pinball, the machine fills with smoke, and then you get like the infinite high score that no one's ever beaten. And Kim is like, yeah.
Yeah, but he won't tell you.
He won't tell you, but he's like, holy shit. You can, like,
I save scum this too because I wanted Kim to like me.
You're like, who's the pinball king, Kim? And he's like, you're the pinball king. That's awesome. There's an elevator right next to it, which is story-wise more important.
Right, but pinball fun.
Right. The pinball thing is a Final Cut edition as well.
Yeah, originally you would just sort of inspect it and he would talk about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can actually tell Gart about these pinball machines, and he's like, maybe I'll bring them out. We can bring in a little extra money.
There's actually a broken pinball machine in the Whirling's like main center that
next to Lena.
Right, that you say like, oh, you should put them out and get some like an arcade stuff going. Get a little surf and turf.
If you don't cooperate, soon you're gonna suffer from fistophobia. That's something Harry would just say.
He would say that, yeah. Oh, Harry is kind of Jack Walsh, to be honest.
But he's also kind of Jonathan Mardukas.
Right, yeah. He got the Duke. Anyway, you guys should watch Midnight Run.
Right. Maybe a future episode of the podcast. We'll definitely talk about it when we do our DVD podcast.
It is a good movie. Anyway, you can go up the elevator into a dusty room full of like kind of blueprints.
Yeah. You'll get a sort of like detective trench coat here, but weirdly enough, it's called the Pinball Maker's coat.
Because there was a pinball maker who lived here.
Yeah, apparently this was a secret pinball workshop, which is the most cartoony thing to be in a game where you're like an amnesiac detective.
Anyway, this coat is the greatest piece of clothing in the game. It makes you look like a 50s detective.
You can also get a 50s detective fedora
called the Dick Mullen hat.
Right.
Oh yeah, this is something that I forget if I mentioned in the first episode, but this game has a few weird references to like leftist podcasts.
I'm still not certain that those are supposed to be.
No, it is. I've looked this up. Like this is like it's unequivocal because Stav from Cumtown was involved with the game, as well as Virgil Texas from Chapo Trap House. In the original cut of the game, Virgil Texas voiced a character who we haven't mentioned yet, and Doom Spiral.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
We'll get to him later in this episode.
Virgil Texas is, Nick Mullen is the host of the edgy leftist podcast Cumtown. And the jokey 50s detective who you can kind of like assume the persona of is called Dick Mullen, like Dick Tracy.
Right. We did talk about Dick Mullen a little bit because on the phone call, everyone's calling you Dick Mullen because you're like a master detective. Not really.
But there's just like strange references like that all over the game.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the pinball workshop notably is covered in dust except for a set of footprints,
which you can inspect with visual calculus.
Yeah, they indicate someone's been through here like recently, like in the past couple weeks.
Right. They're male footprints. You deduce they're large. They're large. They're large enough to be either someone who's heavy and taller or someone who just has very large boots on.
Yeah, I don't actually remember that at all.
Well, that's it creates like a split possibility between someone else and the 8th Hardy Boy.
Right. But anyway, there's also a peephole leading into Clausia's room, which you had to walk through to talk to her on the roof.
Right. This is a faster way to get to Clausia, which would have been nice to discover earlier because it's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, you have to go through 4 loading zones to get to her and 4 to go back. And I was playing this on my old shitty computer where it would take like up to a minute to load each zone.
Genuinely, even on like my gaming computer, it took 30 seconds. It's
frustrating.
It's a pain in the ass.
With this, you only have to go through 2 loading zones, but
it's still too much.
It's kind of unlikely that you're gonna find it before you get the Hardy Boys on your side.
It might be
impossible. Keys to get in there. It is not
really.
It is just a perception check.
Yeah, I thought it unlocked after the authority check, but I might be wrong.
I do not think so.
Anyway, there's nothing you can really do about this right now, but it indicates that there was someone watching Classia
presumably have sex with the mercenary who was killed.
Someone with wearing heavy boots.
Right.
Interestingly, these boots
do not... A dock worker, maybe?
Yeah. Interestingly, these boots do not have the similar soles to the dock workers.
Well, can you tell?
Yes.
I thought you couldn't tell because it's not in the dust.
You're right.
It's in the dust, not in the mud like the other ones. And those sort of got permafrosted over.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
But anyway, that's pretty much all there is. But it's good to know that there are secret passages that anyone who was going to shoot the hangman could go up to Classia's balcony and shoot him through the window. And you can see that the window's been recently repaired on Classia's room.
Visual calculus, kind of like in like Sherlock, borders on magic sometimes, where you can just like inspect the kind of visually reconstruct with very little evidence, like bullet trajectories and stuff.
Right.
But you know that the shot came from outside because it went through the window.
In a game with actual magic, I don't think that's a huge issue.
It's not. But there's not a lot of other stuff to talk about for the main story right now.
Right, so instead we'll talk about a key witness who actually saw the lynching.
Right, so we mentioned the smoker on the balcony last episode, the gay one. Mm-hmm. The one who's dressed in all purple and smoking on the balcony and calls you gendarme.
The gayest way possible.
Yeah, with like a limp wrist, like he's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah. He's a studier of ancient Greek philosophy.
Right, he's rad. Anyway, you can go up to his room to further interview him, and there is the worst fucking character in the game.
I'm just gonna let you go off on this guy because I don't have that much opinions on this guy.
I fucking hate this guy. So the smoker on the balcony is, you find out, basically like a gay prostitute kind of.
Yeah.
And currently in his room is his Sunday friend. So like a guy who hires him every so often.
You have to come back like later at night when he'll be there.
Right. This guy is the fucking worst. He is, so we haven't really mentioned this that much, but Revachol is currently governed as a city-state by an external body called the Moral Intern, which is basically, it's not as stupid as it sounds.
Yeah, it's a portmanteau of Moralist International. Because it's not just a play on the word moral.
Moralism is, as we mentioned before, the sort of like neoliberalism or kind of just liberalism of
it's like the ultimate platonic ideal of centrism.
Right. It's that currently governs the world. This is basically like the UN if they had more power.
Right.
And this guy is a Moral Intern representative, and I hate him. You can try to get any interesting information out of him. You can try to get like any evidence for the murder or ask him anything about the world, and every single thing he'll respond with is a carefully manicured like program for his state employers. He is evasive, he's a liar, he's a perfect bureaucrat, and he sucks. I hate him. He's like emblematic of the rot that is like leaving Revachol to languish and be exploited by the rest of the world.
Are you finished?
Oh, I'm so finished.
All right, and he didn't even say anything, so that's another dead end.
Right, he's completely worthless. He leads you in circles. Honestly, this is intentional.
You get a kind of racist cone hat from his room.
This is intentional by the developers, but he leads you in circles in similar ways to Measurehead, which draws parallels in your mind between the two of them, and is a point that the developers are trying to make between liberalism and fascism. It's not super subtle, but it is pretty cool.
All right, so before we finish up day 2, we're going to talk about a couple other things that I ended up doing on day 2. The first of which is doing Everett's busy work. Everett is
basically hiring you for intimidation.
Right, he probably has your gun, and he says he'll give it to you if you do him a couple of favors.
Right. If you just like do something, you scratch my back, and if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Oh my God, he is coming on to me.
After all, negotiations make strange
bedfellows. Yeah. So one thing. The first thing Everett will have you do is open the door of someone who's been causing him trouble. He has the keys, and he'll literally hand them to you, but he wants it to be like an official cop and not someone working for the union. Because it will be scarier.
It makes it seem like even the Revachol government is on his side.
Right.
Entering this person's apartment, which is like right next to Kuno's Night City shack.
Yeah.
You'll find a old monarchist flag,
very unsubtly resembling the like Rising of the Red Sun Japanese imperial flag.
It's like flying a Confederate flag or a Japanese imperial flag. He's a reactionary.
Right, and he also has a like nerdy collection of like racist mugs.
Right. Which...
Like, I'm just really curious about who is manufacturing all these mugs. Like, collect them all.
He's a connoisseur. Interestingly, and this is like completely unrelated, but the old Revachol monarchist flag bizarrely resembles the flag of Malawi.
It's probably intentional.
Oh, it is intentional, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right, it's intentional, but I can't fathom why.
The Revachol monarchist flag is described as a flag with a red background, waves on the bottom front, and a rising like yellow sun, which is the flag of Malawi, like with no differences. Anyway. Intimidating a random fascist forever makes you feel a little bit less bad about intimidating someone forever.
Right. At least he's a bad guy.
Right.
Like, that's how you can justify it to yourself.
Exactly.
If you feel like it. And you're getting your gun back.
Mr. Everett is helping me find my gun.
That'll be good, I guess. While you're walking back and forth telling Everett that you are doing his dirty work, you'll keep walking past this same container we mentioned in day one, the one that has the rhetoric check.
The one that you need to argue open.
I finally managed to open it in day 2.
I didn't open it until way later, but we can talk about it now.
Yeah, it's the reason I'm talking about it now is it is accessible by this point.
Right,
which
so
means
this
the new stuff will be saved for day 3.
It's the earliest possible point that you could get to it.
Right, well, you can technically open it first try, but that's unlikely to happen unless you min-max your blue skills.
Because it's a very hard rhetoric check. Kim has no idea what you're doing, and like
he's like kind of laughing at you under his breath every time you try this.
This is part of the like not the magic of the game, like the magic of cinema, but literally the magic that's inherent to the world of this game. How are you supposed to know that it's a rhetoric check? Like
I can't open that. It's too heavy for me to open by myself.
I need to argue it open, and that works because after you do a sufficient rhetoric check, there's a voice that comes out from inside and unlocks it for you.
Yeah. So what Kim sees and what presumably most other people see is a guy, just like a guy in a suit, standing in the center of this shipping container.
What you see is radiant light coming, like radiant rainbow light, swirling in all directions from.
Right, he's sort of like absorbing the light that makes up this your perception of the edges of the shipping container into like just like a glowing outline of a man.
Right, a smiling, friendly-looking man.
Right,
in a well-manicured suit, and when you talk to him. He's described by your mind as the mega-rich light-bending guy.
This man is so rich that the laws of physics do not apply to him in the same way as the rest of us.
Your real count goes into the trillions when you stand near him.
It's like in the final boss of Sonic Mania where the timer just keeps glitching out. Your real count will just get bigger and bigger the closer you get to him.
Right. And you can discuss ultra-liberalism with him, and he says that he travels so much that it's more convenient for him to just live in a container and be shipped with whatever goes there.
He doesn't have to interact with low net worth individuals that way.
Right, and so they won't bleed off any of his immense wealth.
Right, presumably those trillions are being slowly vacuumed from him into you.
Right. And this is one of the ways to pay off Gart.
Right.
You can
but it's unlikely you're going to get to it in time for the first day.
Right, but you still get his money no matter what. Not the trillions, but you can either you have an idea to propose a business idea for him to invest in.
Yeah, there's
no way to fail this.
Really?
If you there are two options.
You can either come up with a really good idea or come up with a really bad idea, both of which are conceptualization checks.
If you come up with a bad idea and succeed, he will invest in you. If you come up with a bad idea and fail, you'll accidentally come up with a good idea and he'll invest in you.
And the logic is that, like, super rich people just love throwing their millions away.
Right. And it's the same. It's the same for the good idea. If you fail the good idea, it actually gets you more money because he is more invested in a bad idea.
Right. I think it's $80 on a good idea versus $100. But anyway, this is a huge cash injection. I love this game because it just does not value the idea of, like, being a game and being balanced. Like, they will just give you $100,
and it barely even matters because there's nothing you can spend it on.
Right. You can't be like, okay, I guess I'm gonna buy this sword that I'm not supposed to have yet because it's too expensive.
It's not like I'll get this cool laser cannon.
Right.
The most important thing is it allows you to buy healing items in bulk, which will prevent game overs, but that's like.
But game overs are never really a challenge. The healing items are honestly just a formality.
Right. Like it's like the deaths from like becoming too demoralized are very funny, but they become less of a threat later on.
Right.
And once you get to the really, really big boss fights, your healing items will sometimes not be enough.
Right. They'll just be like, if you fuck it up so bad, you'll just die.
You'll take a lot of hits or you'll die instantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that guy doesn't really have anything to do, but he's really, like, memorable and just a cool part of the game.
He's really, really funny. He has a really great character portrait,
right?
Because it's so, like, ethereal. I before I finished the game, Cass and I were doing like a
tier list thing at 3 a.m.
and I assumed he was, like, really, really important and, like, a big end game character because
like
he looks
God
so
descends
weird
from the heavens to talk to you,
right? Because Judas told me that the end of the game is, like, really unhinged.
It is,
but, like,
we'll
in a different way, yeah. Anyway, he's not important. Like, there's actually nothing important that you can do with him aside from get a lot of money.
Right. This game has a lot of side quests that are not important to the actual game.
Speaking of rich people, you're still looking into the Union's drug smuggling for Joyce.
Right, because you don't have your badge to present her with, and she's only going to help you out. She's only going to give you the deets if you do her a favor.
Right. You can look around, you can ask Tommy about it.
Tommy won't tell you, though. He's way too loyal to his fellow truck drivers.
You can push him on it, and he will hate you for it.
Right. Tommy is, like, weirdly enough, like, the stakes a lot of the time.
Right. Tommy is, like...
Because he's such, like, just, like, an innocent guy who's just a bystander to things that if his life gets fucked up, you feel bad.
He's so nice, and he's a poet, and he has, like, a wife and kid waiting at home.
Right.
And
he had one day before retirement.
Right. It's so like it's not like you can kill him or anything, but it's so sad to see him so demoralized because he's usually so, like, go with the flow.
Yeah, he's just chill about everything.
Right. And so you can push him and pull rank and get more information on the lady truck driver as she's described at this point, and he will absolutely despise you for it.
Yeah,
like you exchanged poetry with him, man.
Yeah. It's honestly really sad if you end up doing this. Who it's not sad to make feel horrible is the racist lorry driver.
Right, who you can push very easily.
Because he's a little bitch.
Right. And, oh my god, I love that scene, actually. You and Kim do, like, a
good cop, bad
cop kind of thing to manipulate him. It's really awesome.
Right. Eventually, he'll tell you that it's a woman who's driving who's like smuggling the drugs.
Right.
And her truck is over there.
Yeah. What's particularly awesome about that scene with you and Kim is it's completely unconscious and planned. Kim just picks up on what you're doing and decides to act with it. It's great.
It's cool. It's definitely like it's a good example of the charisma they have together.
Right, and it's something that can get you good cop, bad cop points, which are points towards Kim liking you or disliking you. Yeah.
It's very easy to actually make Kim like you in this game.
Kim likes you by default if you aren't super racist.
Yeah.
But it's nice to do things that make him like you even more.
Right. So, you go over to the truck that belongs to the lady driver, and you'll open it up, and you'll see that she was a woman liker.
Right, she was a girl liker. She has lots of pictures of
like
pinup women.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Pasted all over the inside of her cab, and
this is how Physical Instrument describes her, by the way, as the woman liker.
He's having trouble figuring it out.
Right, he's a little confused.
Yeah, so an interesting thing is there's a radio inside the cab that is not standard issue. It's it's more expensive, and this is sort of evidence that she has extra money from
and also that she's involved in some sort of complex operation.
Right. Also, the gas pedal has sandpaper on it, so that she can grip it, or her shoes can grip it easier.
Right.
That explains the missing set of footprints. So it looks like this woman liker is the 8th Hardy Boy.
Yeah, and possibly the person who was sneaking around in the pinball maker's workshop.
Right, but you don't...
There's no evidence towards that. You just have two unconfirmed sets of footprints, and you could put them together.
Right, but the smoother sole of the 8th set of footprints outside definitely matches up with the sandpaper. When you were originally investigating that set of footprints, Kim will comedically say, "Hey, maybe it was a drummer. They use one of their feet more than the other," and you can make fun of him for it for at a variety of different points in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
But anyway. You've sort of found someone to pin the...
Also, Kim can make fun of you for not knowing what a lesbian is.
Right.
Because he's in with the crowd.
Right, he's also a student of the Greek philosophy.
Right. This is something we might as well mention now, because you can get it pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are confused by how the smoker on the balcony makes you feel...
Kim kind of just goes like this guy.
Yeah, Kim makes fun of you, and he's like, oh, he smells nice and makes you feel warm, and this leads to the homosexual underground thought.
Right, you can talk to the after you sort of do the stuff with the Sunday friend, the smoker on the balcony will be inside the Whirling in Rags, and you can pass a composure check to try and figure out what's going on, which will give you
deal is,
which will give you the thought homosexual underground.
Which is a thought about obsessing over yours and other people's sexuality.
Yeah. Eventually, this thought is actually kind of funny because it results in no tangible positive benefits to you.
Everyone does it because it's really funny.
Right.
It doesn't do anything. It gives you a bonus while you're internalizing it. I'm pretty sure, a small bonus.
Yeah, it's like some red skill or something.
And the entire payoff of this thing is that when you finish it, you get the option to ask him about his sexuality and ask him if he's a member of the homosexual underground, and he says yes, and that's your lot. That's your whole thing.
That's all you get.
That's worth it though. Yeah. Honestly.
But Kim's way too good for Harry. So.
Right. Harry's kind of Harry feels like, at least in fandom or in canon, he's a chaotic bisexual.
Right.
And, who doesn't know it?
And weirdly enough, I've heard people say that this thought sort of confirms him as straight, which I don't understand.
I think that's it does the opposite, because he feels warm and loving around the.
Yeah, I think that's
a very strange conclusion to reach.
Right.
This doesn't let you figure out Ruby, but this doesn't let you figure out someone.
The lady driver of the truck.
Yeah, this doesn't let you figure her out because she likes women, which is different from men liking men.
Right. So with that sort of drug smuggling stuff sort of reaching its conclusion. What?
One last fun fact about Homosexual Underground. Before Final Cut, it was a 20-hour thought.
Right, and then they dropped it to 8.
So that more people would do it, because it's funny.
Although I think it's really funny for it to be like a 20-hour troll.
But Kim says yes, and don't devote another thought to like.
Don't devote another 20-hour mind.
Don't
project,
devote another 20-hour mind project to like figuring out your own sexuality or something.
Right. Well, no. When you're asking him about his sexuality, he's like, "I'll spare you another 24-hour
right.
mind project."
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So
he says, "Yeah, I'll spare you another 24-hour mind project." I am.
Right.
Right.
So basically, that's pretty much all I did on day 2. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Not that I can think of. The coast isn't open yet.
Yeah.
I think I talked to Cindy on day 2.
Oh, well,
but we've already talked about her. 1. I talked to Manana a little bit about his Mesk background,
right?
Which is again just like Spanish and Mexican and French. And Italian. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's Southern Europe, but also the places that they colonized. It's complicated.
Yeah, this goes without saying that that like every character has like a couple new lines of dialogue that will open throughout the game.
Right.
We're not going to be talking about the ones that don't really lead anywhere.
I love Call Me Mañana though.
Some of them lead to thoughts. I think Call Me Mañana's leads to some sort of.
Oh yeah, it leads to the Boyadero lifestyle thought.
Right.
The Boyaderos are basically like they're like Spanish vaqueros, but they're also Italian, kind of. It's weird.
Alright, so yeah, we talked about, so that's everything basically for day 2. On day 3, yeah, but on day 3 a big new chunk of the game opens and there'll be a lot more new stuff to talk about, but we've pretty much covered everything you can do on this side of the game before that opens up. Much
like the end of the first day, the second day ends with another dream, not fully rendered like the first game.
Yeah, it's not nearly as involved. There's only one other dream that's like that in the game, but it is your limbic system and ancient reptilian brain.
Basically discussing how much you've destroyed yourself with alcohol.
Right.
In cryptic terms.
And how it's gonna be a big problem for you if you don't get some soon.
Right, because you're so addicted. Should we...
So, yeah, I think we can wrap it up here for now.
I think this is a good episode end, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot to talk about with day 3 tomorrow.
Yeah, day 3 will probably be a longer one, but yeah, that's day 2. We're sort of seeing the plot thicken.
Right.
It's not quite so simple as it was just these guys who killed him.
The disgusting soup thickens.
Right.
The vodka borscht thickens.
Right. The leg meat soup.
Right.
But yeah.
See ya.
Do you have any like?
Oh right.
Twitters?
My Twitter and my Twitter is a sci-fi nerd with underscores between everything. I have a stupid YouTube channel that I don't update that you should link in the description.
Yeah, I will.
And yeah, no.
Yeah, I have Twitter, I_Chortle. And if you want your fan mail to be read live on air, you can email me at podcast. So, yeah.
And
we have stickers as well. So email me if you want one, or just physically walk up to me.
Right. They're pretty rad. They're pretty badass.
Yeah, I labored long and hard on the Cricut machine to try and get them printed right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.